Hi there guys, I'm Nikhil from Greedy Tech, and in this video I'll be doing a quick unboxing and the complete review of the Vivo X50 Pro. So here's the box. Vivo has launched this phone in India only in one variant, and that too in only a single color, Alpha Grey, and priced it at 50,000 rupees. It's available both online and offline. Now the main highlights for this phone would be its gimbal camera setup, a 3D curved display with 90Hz refresh rate, and 5G capabilities. So this is going to be the flagship from Vivo in India. Now let's have a quick unboxing. This is how the box looks on the front, just the name and 5G at the bottom. On the left side and right side, we have just the Vivo branding and it says Made in India. On the back, it's pretty much plain with some specs, IMEI numbers and box contents. Once we open the box, we have the phone itself, and on the right side it says Photography Redefined, as it's mainly focused on cameras. Next, we have some documentation along with a SIM card ejector. Following that is a soft TPU case. Next, we have a 33-watt Vivo Flash Charger 2.0 power adapter. That's followed by earbuds with an inline mic, extra ear tips, a 3.5mm to Type-C converter, and finally, we have a USB Type-A to Type-C charging cable. Now let's come back to the phone. This is how the phone looks on the back, and this is how the phone looks on the front. Now let's have a physical overview. On the back, this phone has a 3D curved glass with anti-glare frosting technology, which gives it this frost finish which prevents fingerprints and also looks pretty cool. At the top, we have the quad camera setup along with the flash, and at the bottom we have the Vivo branding. On the front, we have an amazing looking 3D curved display with a punch hole design. Above the display, we have the regular earpiece, and below the display it's completely plain and the chin is pretty small. Now for the sides, on the right side it has the power and volume buttons made of plastic. They have a nice clicky feel to them. I wish they were slightly more elevated. At the top we have the secondary microphone for noise cancellation, and it says 5G professional photography. On the left side it's completely plain. Now finally at the bottom we have the SIM card tray housing 2 nano SIM slots, followed by the primary microphone, USB Type-C charging port, and the speaker grill. Now this phone has a thickness of 8.04mm and weighs just 181 grams. Now this is how the phone looks with the case on. It is a slightly raised lip for the camera module on the rear, so even when you place your phone on its back, it's protected. And on the front, it is a slightly raised lip at the top and bottom, giving it a bit more protection. Overall, this case is pretty decent for initial use. If you want better protection, get a better case. Now these are the complete specifications of this phone. On the rear, it has a 48MP camera with a gimbal stabilization with a customized Sony IMX598 sensor. That's followed by a 13MP professional portrait camera with f2.46 aperture. Next, we have an 8MP super wide angle camera with 120° field of view. And finally, we have an 8MP periscope telephoto camera with 5x optical zoom and 60x hybrid zoom. For selfies, you get a 32MP camera. Now on the front, you get a massive 6.58-inch Super AMOLED 3D curved Ultra O display with 90Hz refresh rate, 180Hz screen response time, 92.6% screen to body ratio, and with a peak brightness of 1300 nits. And obviously, it also has HDR10 Plus support. As for performance, it will be running Snapdragon 765G with Adreno 620 GPU with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. It will be running FunTouch OS 10.5 based on Android 10. Powering this device is a 4315mAh battery that supports fast charging and comes with a 33W Vivo Flash Charger 2.0 inside the box. By the way, this phone also has an independent audio chip and it has high-res certification. So audio quality or audio jack is definitely going to be great. On first boot, this phone was running FunTouch OS 10.5 based on Android 10 with July security patch. Out of that 256GB of storage, we get about 239GB of space for our user apps and user data. And out of that 8GB of RAM, we get about 4GB of RAM free right out of the box. I'll start off the review with the design and build. Vivo X50 Pro is truly a flagship. Like, this phone really has everything a truly flagship should have. Curved display, check. Punch hole design, check. Sleek form factor, check. An amazing looking back panel, that's again a check. So this phone has a frosted back panel which by the way definitely looks very premium than your regular glossy back, and it also helps you prevent smudges. Because of the 20:9 aspect ratio, phone looks much sleeker and much taller than your regular phone. It looks kinda odd in some aspect, but because of that, phone fits pretty comfortably in a single hand, and you can actually use this phone single-handedly as well. Well, most of the part. As for the camera design, once again looks pretty cool, pretty different from other phones, and because of that gimbal setup for the primary camera actually takes up a lot of the space in the camera module, and there's even a camera bump for the phone. With that said, on a flat surface, phone doesn't wobble a lot. Overall design and build of this phone is truly top-notch and can be comparable with any flagship out there. For me, no cons and no issues so far. Now in the hardware department, this phone literally has all the basic sensors, nothing's missing. In fact, ambient sensor works really well. You also have dual SIM support. There's no SD card, but considering the internal storage, you might not need one. This phone also has an in-display fingerprint scanner, which is super fast and be comparable with other flagships. You also get the famous Face Unlock feature, and once again, Face Unlock is super fast, probably faster than the fingerprint scanner. You just need to wake up the display, it sees your face and unlocks the phone, and all that happens in an instant. So most of the time, I never actually got to use the fingerprint scanner. It's just there when you need it. As for the things that are missing, there's no wireless charging and there's no NFC. Now for the display, this phone truly has one of the best displays in the market. Like, you're getting a 6.56-inch Super AMOLED display with a 3D curve punch hole design, with a peak brightness of 1300 nits, 90Hz refresh rate, 180Hz screen response time, sleek bezels all around. You literally can't ask for more from this display. It truly looks amazing. Whether it's for watching videos or playing games, you truly have a great experience with this display. Sunlight visibility is obviously pretty good. Blacks, they are true blacks because of the AMOLED display. We also have a dark mode, which actually makes the display look much more cooler. Right out of the box, refresh rate on this phone is set to Smart Switch. So your phone automatically switches the refresh rate depending upon what you're doing. And in my experience, I found it to be inconsistent. And sometimes I even doubted if it was a 90Hz refresh rate. So to avoid all that, I just switched it to 90Hz. And I had a consistent experience, and the display looks very fluid all the time. So everything about this display is really good except for that punch hole design. Well, not the design, but its positioning. Because of its positioning, for most of the applications, especially for the apps that you use in portrait orientation, you end up with a bigger status bar, which kinda looks odd. That's kind of a personal opinion. For some applications, you really can't notice the difference between the status bar and the rest of the application. But for some applications, say like PhonePe, that status bar sticks out a lot and looks kinda inconsistent with the overall design of the phone. By the way, once you turn on the navigation gestures on this phone truly looks very immersive. Like, there's no obstruction on this phone and you have those navigation gestures which work very seamlessly. Here's a quick preview. Just swipe from the bottom of the screen to go home. Swipe and hold for recent tabs. You can swipe from the left side or right side to go back a step. You can also swipe from the bottom left corner or bottom right corner diagonally to trigger Google Assistant. So all these gestures once again make the display look much more beautiful and much more consistent to the overall design. Now when it comes to cameras, this phone is packed with tons of features, especially camera related features, which most of them are not even visible on the camera interface. By the way, this is the camera interface. This phone is all about that gimbal mechanism. People think gimbal only works for video recording, but that's not true. It actually works every time, everywhere. Whether you're taking a regular picture or a picture in night mode, gimbal mechanism is always there, tries to stabilize your phone and allows you to take a great picture. And by the way, this gimbal mechanism is actually much better than your regular optical image stabilization. In fact, it's 300% better, and the results are pretty evident. Now, besides the primary 48 megapixel camera, you also get a 13 megapixel camera with telephoto lens with 2x zoom, an 8 megapixel super wide angle camera, which you can also use for taking macro shots, and finally, you also get an 8 megapixel periscope telephoto lens with 5x optical zoom and 60x hybrid zoom. And Vivo has done a great job managing colors, dynamic range across all the cameras. They're not completely same, but they're pretty close and you get a pretty consistent effect. These are all the sample shots. You may actually never use that 60x zoom, but it's there and you may use it. Now as for the pictures, they're sharp noise levels are fairly under control, colors are sometimes oversaturated, but they do have good dynamic range. Pictures from the periscope lens sometimes have a faded effect, but that's manageable. As for selfies, once again they look pretty good, pretty consistent. Color reproduction is in fact much better than the rear camera, they look pretty accurate. Even the dynamic range is pretty good. There's no aggressive post-processing, and that's something I really like about this camera. Even the regular portrait selfies and portrait shots come out to be pretty good. Edge detection is once again not 100% perfect, but we can still use them. Now here's a sample footage using the primary camera with gimbal setup at 1080p resolution. As you can see, it's pretty stable. Now here's a sample footage from the wide-angle camera, once again at 1080p resolution, and surprisingly, footage is still pretty stable. Like even the electronic image stabilization from the wide-angle camera is doing a pretty decent job and can be comparable with the gimbal setup if you're just walking around. Now here's a sample footage in ultra stable mode. Once again, we are still using the primary camera and footage is actually much stable than before. Now finally, here's a sample footage recorded in 4K resolution at 60 fps. Once again, we are still using the primary camera. For some reason, stabilization isn't that great. This one has a lot of camera related features which can't be covered in this video. So for that, I made a dedicated camera review video, so check that out for all the camera related features that are available on this phone. So cameras on this phone are pretty good and are definitely worth the price. And that gimbal mechanism definitely works. Now when it comes to the software department, this phone is still running FunTouch OS 10.5 based on Android 10, but it got the latest September security patch. Vivo V20, which was just launched, comes with FunTouch OS 11 with Android 11, so even this phone should be getting the latest Android 11 update pretty soon. As for the user experience, everything is pretty smooth thanks to that 90Hz display. I didn't notice any bugs either. Because of the 8GB of RAM, memory management has also been pretty good. This phone is also loaded with tons of features, gestures and all kinds of crazy stuff. I made a dedicated video for that. Check that out, link will be in the description. Now when it comes to performance, even though this phone doesn't have a flagship level processor, Snapdragon 765 is also a pretty good processor and I didn't notice any kind of lag. Whether it was playing games or for regular usage, there was no lag whatsoever. You can play high-end games like PUBG, Asphalt 9, Call of Duty without any hiccups. Now when it comes to audio department, this one has just a single speaker at the bottom. It sounds pretty loud enough, it's good enough for media consumption, ringtones and alarms, but I wish it still had a dual speaker setup, especially considering the price. By the way, it also lacks an audio jack, but you do get an adapter inside the box, and the audio experience over the headset is also pretty good thanks to the dedicated audio chip on this phone. Now finally, when it comes to the battery department, this phone has a pretty large 4315 mAh battery that supports fast charging, comes with a 33 watt power adapter inside the box. I got an average about 6 to 7 hours of screen on time. Phone can be completely charged from 0 to 100% in about 1.5 hours, and you can get up to 30% of charge in just about 20 minutes, which is super fast. So even the battery life of this phone is pretty good considering the form factor of the phone and the massive display. So guys, to conclude, Vivo X50 Pro is one of the best phones that you can get for about 50,000 rupees with best cameras, with a great design and a truly amazing display. It has its cons like there's no IP rating, no wireless charging, and there's no flagship processor either. But if you're just looking for a phone with great cameras, great design and a great display, then you can definitely go for this phone. So guys, what do you think about this phone? Do let me know by commenting below this video. If you have any questions about this phone or want us to make any specific video, tweet out to us with the hashtag AskGreedyTech on Twitter and we will try to make it as soon as possible. I'm Nikhil from Greedy Tech signing off. Have a nice day.